What if I told you the Utah Jazz may have already found the player who changes everything? Not 5 years from now, not after 3 NBA seasons. I'm talking about someone who, through just 2 summer league games, has already started making NBA fans ask a very dangerous question. Is Darryn Peterson actually ahead of schedule? Now, before anyone says, relax, it's only summer league, let me stop you right there, because this isn't about the box score. We've seen plenty of players dominate summer league and disappear once the real season starts. This is about how Peterson is producing. It's the pace, the decision-making, the confidence, the ability to read defenders before they even react. Those are the traits that usually separate future stars from players who simply put up good numbers. And after breaking down every possession, one thing became incredibly clear. The statistics tell only half the story. The film tells the rest, so let's dive in. The numbers grab your attention. The film keeps you watching. Peterson wasted absolutely no time making an impression. From his very first summer league appearance, he looked like someone completely comfortable running an offense. He attacked the rim with confidence. He knocked down perimeter shots. He played through contact, and perhaps most importantly, nothing about the moment looked too big for him. That immediately stood out. Most young guards spend their first few games trying to adjust to the speed of professional basketball. Peterson looked like he was already playing at his own pace. That's a huge difference. Because controlling the tempo, instead of reacting to it, is something elite NBA guards eventually learn. Peterson showed flashes of that immediately. The first possession that told everyone. Something was different. One early possession perfectly captured why scouts are so excited. After receiving a screen, Peterson forced a defensive switch. Instead of settling for a jumper against the bigger defender, he immediately attacked. He lowered his shoulder just enough to create space, changed the finishing angle in midair, and calmly finished around the rim. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't viral, but it was incredibly mature. Young guards often rush these situations. Peterson stayed balanced from start to finish. That's advanced basketball. Transition. Basketball is becoming his weapon. Then came another sequence that showed a completely different part of his game. Utah secured the rebound, and before the defense even realized what happened, Peterson was already sprinting down the floor. He caught the outlet pass, absorbed contact, finished through traffic, and still completed the play. That's not simply athleticism, that's timing. Great transition scorers understand exactly when to accelerate. Peterson consistently finds that window before defenders can recover. It's one of those little details that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, but it creates easy points throughout a game. He's not avoiding contact. He's looking for it. One thing became obvious almost immediately. Peterson doesn't shy away from physical defenders. He welcomes them. Instead of fading away from contact, he attacks defenders' bodies first. That allows him to stay balanced while forcing defenders into difficult positions. Veteran scorers do this all the time. Drawing contact isn't luck, it's a skill. And Peterson already seems to understand how to create those opportunities naturally. That makes finishing at the rim much more sustainable as competition improves. Then came the shot that changed. Everything scoring inside is valuable, but every NBA defense eventually asks the same question. Can you consistently shoot? Peterson answered almost immediately. Working in isolation. He patiently sized up his defender, created just enough separation, and buried a clean step-back three. No hesitation, no wasted movement, just confidence. That single possession changes how defenses have to guard him. Because once defenders respect the jumper, driving lanes suddenly become much easier to attack. And that's where things start getting dangerous. If Game 1 introduced Darryn Peterson to NBA fans, Game 2 answered the biggest question everyone had: could he make his teammates better too? Because scoring gets attention, but running an offense? That's what earns a coach's trust. And from the opening minutes of his second Summer League game, Peterson looked like someone who wasn't just hunting points anymore. He was controlling the entire floor. He's never playing. Too fast one of the first possessions perfectly showed his maturity. The defense sent extra pressure as soon as he came off a screen. For most young guards, that's exactly where mistakes happen. They pick up their dribble, they rush a pass, or they force a difficult shot. Peterson did none of those things. Instead, he stayed patient. He kept his dribble alive. He waited for the defense to commit, then calmly floated the ball over the help defender for an easy finish. It looked effortless, but that's an advanced read. He's already learning that basketball isn't always about beating defenders with speed. Sometimes, it's about making them hesitate first. Every screen becomes a problem. As the game continued, Memphis kept changing its defensive coverages. Sometimes they switched. Sometimes they went under the screen. Sometimes they trapped. None of it seemed to matter. Whenever defenders backed off, Peterson confidently stepped into open jumpers. Whenever they pressed higher, he attacked the paint. That's exactly what elite shot creators do. They don't allow the defense to dictate the possession. They force the defense to react. And once that happens, everything starts opening up. His passing might be more impressive than his scoring. This is where Peterson really separated himself. He wasn't simply finding open teammates, he was creating opportunities before they even developed. Several times he drove toward the middle of the floor, pulled multiple defenders with him, then fired perfectly timed passes to wide-open shooters. The box score credits him with an assist. Film shows something much bigger. He manipulated the defense. That's what great point guards do. They make 5 defenders move exactly where they want them, and Peterson showed flashes of that throughout the entire game. He's already reading NBA defenses. One possession stood out more than any other. Peterson came off another screen. The big defender hesitated for just 1 second. That tiny mistake was enough. Instead of forcing his own shot, Peterson immediately pointed toward the basket. His teammate recognized the signal. Cut behind the defense. Easy layup. That play won't end up on highlight reels. But NBA coaches absolutely love possessions like that because it proves he's processing the game in real time. He's not just reacting, he's anticipating. His pace is starting to look familiar. The deeper you watch Peterson, the more one thing becomes obvious. Nothing feels rushed. He changes speeds naturally. He slows defenders down, then suddenly explodes past them. It's a rare skill. Some players rely purely on athleticism, others rely on shooting. Peterson blends both while constantly changing tempo. That makes him incredibly difficult to stay in front of. Defenders never know exactly when he's about to attack, and that's exactly what creates separation without needing elite explosiveness every single possession. Confidence. You can't teach late in the game. Peterson isolated at the top of the key. The defender expected him to drive. Instead, he created just enough room, rose into another jumper, and knocked it down without hesitation. That's becoming a pattern. Every possession looks under control. Every shot looks confident. Even after mistakes, his body language never changes. That's something every great scorer eventually develops. Short memory, full confidence. Next play mentality. He's starting to control the entire game by the final buzzer. The stat line was impressive, but once again, the numbers didn't fully explain what actually happened because Peterson wasn't simply putting points on the board. He was dictating possessions, creating advantages, finding open teammates, breaking down coverages, and making basketball look much slower than it actually is. For a player this early in his professional journey, that's incredibly rare. But here's where the conversation gets really interesting. Because once you compare his playing style to some of today's biggest NBA stars, you begin to understand why expectations around Peterson are rising so quickly. Now here's where the conversation starts getting complicated. Because once a young player strings together a couple of impressive performances, the comparisons begin almost immediately. Some fans get carried away, others dismiss them completely. But in Peterson's case, there are actually pieces of his game that remind you of some of today's biggest NBA stars. Not because he's already on their level, but because of how he plays. And that's a very important distinction. The first name everyone mentions when people watch Peterson create space in the mid-range. Use patient footwork and rise into difficult jumpers with complete confidence. One name naturally comes up: Kobe Bryant. You can see why. It's the balance, the pivots, the willingness to take tough shots when the defense does everything right. Those little details instantly catch people's attention. But that's only part of the picture. Because Peterson's game is built on much more than contested jumpers, the comparison that actually makes more sense if you really study his possessions. Another player starts coming to mind: Gilgeous-Alexander. Not because they move exactly the same, but because they attack defenses the same way. Neither player depends on overwhelming athleticism. Instead, they rely on timing, patience, body control, and changing speeds. Watch Peterson come off a screen. He doesn't immediately explode toward the rim. He waits.